All right. I think we're recording now. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Um, this 1st of April, not a joke, Werewolf Technical Steering Committee meeting. And we got a few things on a discussion agenda today, largely around the upcoming 470 release that's hot in progress. But Rose, why don't you kick us off with an update on what's going on with Perk and a BOF submission thereof?
Yes, Perk Werewolf BOF submission has been submitted. That's my announcement.
um, do you know when we're supposed to get like feedback from it?
Um, that's a great question. I'm sure that there is a date, and I want to say August, but that makes absolutely no sense. So my brain is wrong, and I will look that up and get to you while we're talking.
Okay, cool. Um, so I'll be there, of course. Anyone else planning on being at Perk?
Yep.
Yes,
Everyone.
there's a faint glimmer of hope.
Okay, Ian. Crossing my fingers for you.
Me too.
I think Timothy said for sure too he'll be there.
Cool. Um, Something on the actual like technical steering side of things, not just development. I wanted to bring up the idea of adjusting how we're doing version numbering, inching towards something that is more like what people expect. That perhaps from now on, so we're working on a 470, and that was my recommendation because things are getting kind of large in there and some of the changes are bigger. But I'm thinking if we're doing something other than literally just backporting a bug fix or a security fix or something like that, maybe we just start uh, iterating or incrementing. That's what I'm looking for. Incrementing the second digit and only using this third digit when we are backporting a bug or security fix. But I wanted to check with the group, the committee, see what people think of for that.
Aren't we already doing that?
No, we've been iterating this one before now. So if we go to like what am I trying to do? This is what I want to show. So in releases, like we have 465, and there are feature changes in 465 and in 464, things like that.
Okay.
We've been adding features. I'm suggesting that we just always increment this second digit, leave this at dot zero, and just go with that unless we're backporting bug fixes.
I think I've had complaints from a few internal folks here that we would increment the third digit and then it would break backwards compatibility. And so
In ge-
they're in
yeah.
general, what we should do is follow the fairly standard rule of um, the third digit should always be backward compatible with the previous. And then if it's not, then you'll increment the second digit.
So I will then. Uh, here, I'm here somewhere. There we go. That
To be
one.
fair, it is odd because we're not really four, it's Werewolf 4.
Yeah, I want to
Version
fix that
1.
too. Once we get to version 5, I want to actually declare stability at the major number, and but we're moving to the left, I think. Uh, and and that'll put a reminder in my email for that. Cool. I also wanted to have a brief conversation about at least some changes of thought that I need to go through about my use of language models in werewolf development. Because Christian has had to call me out a couple times now for unnecessarily complicated things that
It's no, 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 no. That's I'm totally with you to use language model on that. We
for sure.
just have, yeah, yeah. That's just it's not. We can use them. We should just sometimes it puts some load from the programmer to the reviewer.
Well,
That's
and that's kind of my point is the thing that I have let myself get into the habit of, and this is just like saying it out loud to make it okay for other people too, maybe, is it becomes so effective that it's easy to stop checking it and just trusting the output instead of the
yeah,
implementation. And so the way I'm going to change the way I'm thinking about this is I need to do my own PR review, like code level PR review, before I submit a PR, so that I'm not just placing all of that burden on the person doing the PR review. It needs to at least look like code that I liked before I sent it in. And Christian's asking me questions about implementation that I can't answer, and that's a problem. So that's how I'm going to be adjusting that. Is I'm not going to be at least moving a PR out of draft until I can speak to everything in it.
no, I like the PR. It was just really
Yeah,
the implementation details which were kind of
yeah.
the TPM PR also, but I had to also sometimes really just go inside and tell just delete a lot of stuff in the thing and then tell them fix it please again, and
Yes.
also the tests I didn't check.
So the behavior of this werewolf control unset command I think is pretty good and in a good state, but there are a couple places where the implementation needs to be simplified. So I'm going to go back and do one more pass at a code level there, and then I think that should be good to merge. But I've moved it back to draft for now until then.
Yeah, sorry for that.
No, it's I appreciate a good code review, so that's good. I wanted to bring up another, and Christian, I have a thing at the end where I want to hear about the TPM support that you're doing
Yeah.
because I haven't looked at it at all, and an overview from you will be good. Um, so I put this here. I'm working on a pull request to remove legacy support for asking for individual overlays, and then add a file server that I think Tim and Christian maybe both requested in a previous meeting. But at the same time, I had also at one point removed the ability to request individual files from an overlay, which was a function that Christian had added in maybe a couple point releases ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I don't know
uh,
if anybody's really using it, but I think it's
so my concern had been at the
yeah,
time that this lets you get data out of an overlay that could be secret without authentication, without that you might otherwise have in the runtime overlay. So what I've done in the PR that's in progress right now is I've added that functionality back in and added. I think you, Christian, were already checking for secure true. If it was doing secure true, then it would only share it with a um, privileged port. But I've added in support for checking the asset key. And
mm,
then I have moved the node that it's rendering for to be the Warewulf ID, which is usually the MAC address, rather to match the authentication pattern for other things. But I wanted to check and see if you had any concerns with that. So it instead of looking like this for rendering templates, it now looks like this. And you actually need this for every file request now.
yeah.
Okay. So that's what's in process. There was a bunch of back and forth in my commit history, so I've been cleaning up the commit history, and I
Yeah,
should
it's
have
it's
that.
also it's so yeah, no, then for the file server, I would say, okay, if it's a template, you need a WWID set. And if you put a template in that location, you know what you do.
So I have in this new files space. So
Yeah.
there's the the two the two wraps are files, and I think it's overlay file. So these are the two that exist, and both of these behave the same now. They get their files from a different place, but you request things the same. So overlay file
Yeah.
gets it from like overlay name, and then that gets it from rootfs. And files gets it from a files directory in varlib werewolf. So you can
Yeah,
put
but the thing is, I would say the we should not make the overlays which we configure, which keep them separated. This that because that kind of could lead to that secret kind of that we accidentally or that a user accidentally leaks a secret. Because if you can manage it with the standard tools, you could put a file, you could put a template in there or just make the variable. Whereas when we say, okay, you have to manually move a template file with the standard Unix command to /files, wherever this is located, then we are out and we say, okay, you did something and you check the documentation, you did something which wasn't where the documentation tells you, okay, you could leak a secret and you leaked the secret. So then we can say, okay, there it wasn't documentation.
So
Whereas, and we,
are you advocating then for removing this overlay file
yeah,
one
yeah.
and
And
only
then in
having this?
files, if files has something with www.ww at the end, we render it if a Weber ID is given.
Yeah, and that's what it does. I thought that you were of the
No,
opinion
no,
that
not
this
not
needs
not
to
for that.
stay.
We don't because if that could lead to accidentally leaking secrets.
Okay, then I
And
will go back to removing this and
sorry
just
for I hope
yeah,
yeah.
it's
And
okay.
in the file section the overlays weren't rendered. In some PR I reviewed. You could have changed it and I didn't really check it today,
No,
so
you're right. Yes. So originally this did not support rendering templates. It
yeah,
now does. I have restored this, but I will take it back out now if
yeah.
we are agreed that this is a better place to have that. All right, I will do that, and that'll simplify things. Um, version 4.7 in general is in a reasonably good state. I know I've been saying that for a little while, so it would be better for it to be done. But there's only one issue that doesn't have a pending PR. That's caused Dracket boot to fail if ignition fails, which is almost certainly like a one-line change that'll be easy to fix. Um, so that's fine. Hey, Tim has joined. And then the rest of them, I think that the bigger things that are in here that I'm not certain like whether they'll make it into the release. This one here is a thing that I and lots of people want. I don't think that the current PR is in a state to be merged, but I don't know that. Can anyone speak to the current status of this pull request? I don't think it's been changed since our last discussion about it. Shane, this one's yours originally.
Sorry, had to get my microphone all sorted. What's up? Yeah,
So
so the really why this is still in draft is because I feel like there should be some test case for it, and I've just not written the tests.
okay.
It does work. I just need to figure out and might need to introduce additional tooling too, like, put a file in like the test overlays or images or whatever that actually have extended attributes to, see that they're preserved after they're CPIO'd.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I think if we were able to get this in, that would be great. So if you're able to put some testing in there to demonstrate that it's working as intended and desired, awesome. how can you kind of remind me how this is implemented? Is it maintaining a separate file that it's re-exporting, or is this like support for tar, or how does it work?
In the long term, tar support would probably be ideal. What this does is it does make like a um additional file, and I believe that's per overlay that's like composed into whatever resulting image that's then gone through. It's been a minute since I've looked at it. I'd have to,
Fair enough.
but yeah, it goes through the file that it creates, which is just like the output functionally of like lsadder or whatever to dump the attributes into a
Right.
format that's to be used by the set xadder.
Okay. And then this one, I don't know who sense is. Um, I think this one devolved into a conversation about whether we should use a different CPIO implementation. Um, because the renumber inodes flag was added later and might not be available in all versions. I think I checked and it wasn't in Rocky 8, maybe. I think that may have been why I had a concern. Um, Tim, I think I have gone looking for a Go CPIO library at some point in the past and didn't find something that I was super happy with. But if you have one to recommend, that sounds good.
Yeah, I've used one in the past. I've built a provisioner that was all one Go library. It basically does all the things that WW client does. It's a standalone Go library. So gzip, all the neat things in there, and it worked fine. So
Okay, great. Um,
and
yeah,
it's fairly easy to use.
nice. Can it do the renumbering of inodes?
I did not get that deep, so
That might be a thing to. I mean, obviously, for that pull request, it would be
why do you need to renumber inodes again?
so. It was something like CPIO doesn't support as many inodes, and so if the like its inode number is
Oh,
32-bit, and so if the inode number gets too far out on the source file system, it's replicating the inode numbers one for one originally, but then it can get collisions when it's going onto the CPIO inode space.
is that a problem where maybe they should just use a more capable file system on the server?
So I think that the issue is that the server's file system is more capable, but
Oh,
CPIO truncates to 32-bit.
okay. Or the current is it might be yeah. I am slowly getting back into doing werewolf stuff. I may try to look into that,
Okay,
given I have experience with the CPIO library. I'll put that in my list.
nice. Thank you. I want to check out this uh, AI fix thing that Christian put together. I haven't looked at it yet because I've been trying to get
No,
the other two done,
that's
but
actually not a good state.
no, okay. Then there are two issues that need a pull request if we are gonna. Yeah, this is that the empty file handling in template rendering that we need to figure out. But plugging away, bringing things down, and getting things into a good committable state, and then we'll cut off at 4.7. I think so. These here are trivial. This stuff up here, I want to get in, and then uh, actually, I think this is pretty trivial too. Um, and Christian, I haven't really looked at this one. I saw the added format output for node list PR. Oh, it's still
Yeah,
here.
that's also actually a bit stale. That was just when I did some other stuff in Golang, and I thought, okay, that could be an interesting thing.
Okay, to bump this to a future release.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna bump that to 4.8 then.
That then because that would remove, then I would say, okay, we remove the standard list. where we have the long list and all that stuff that we just say, okay, you set the format via an option set. We have some pre-configured formatting options, but the only thing we would then lose perhaps the header, but I have to think about it. Think a bit about it if we then could still retain the header. The thing is if you do the formatting per line with a template, then you just give the how the line should look like. So we iterate over every node, then create this single line template for every node, and then the header, where does it come from? And also
Yeah,
it would
I
not
think
be a table. Sorry?
yeah, I think you have to support that optionally, and then the header just that you don't have a header then because you don't know what it will be.
Yeah, or you say, okay, you say you give kind of the header separately, or pass it out of the template. It could also be possible. But then it would not be a tabular output.
Right.
That's
Because it could be multi-line or it could be
yeah, you
very
could do
finicky.
weird stuff. But people like to do that sometimes. If you aren't scripting, then you
Yeah.
Then you
One
should be
moment.
using JSON.
I've locked
yeah,
myself
Jason
out.
is already there.
There we go. Back in. So the last thing on the list then is Christian. You've got this TPM pull request. I will
Yeah.
try to open it, and can you tell us what you're working on here? And
Yeah, perhaps I will just if you allow me to share the screen, I will
oh yeah,
try
yeah,
to
sure.
share it. Let's give you on the right screen. Uh, oh, now you're getting the right screen. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I
So
got the terminal.
yeah, that's it. It's really not more. So the idea of the trusted, so the TPM device, we have it in servers, I think, since 10 or 15 years. It was for Windows 11, you needed it. That's the reason why it's inside now really every device, and for the most devices, it's also integrated into the CPU. What it does, it's kind of it's one part, it's doing the secure boot. So it checks, so if you enable secure boot, the TPM checks that all the things are signed. What you also can do is the so-called measured boot, and that's was used for or is used for BitLocker, and also some now I think Ubuntu and also SUSE support it for full disk encryption. What we are doing here is that the idea is, so what the thing now does, if it's enabled, what it always does, phrase it that way, it in the standard distros, it already measures the boot. That means that we can get from the TPM device a signed binary boot log. Uh, the thing is, it's not the boot log is not signed. We get a boot log, and for every step in the boot log, which the boot log does, it increments a hash, and we get the signed hash. So that's the point. That's already happening. Now, what this PR adds is in WW client that it kind of reads out this so-called quote, which includes the complete boot or which includes these signed PCRs. They are so called, that are the signed hashes. And with that signed hashes, we can then replay on the server and check if grub used and only used the files we sent out. And if we are sure that grub just used the files we sent out and the checksums match, then we send to the node a so-called that's not a quote, that's the challenge. We send out a challenge to the node, and only the TPM can unseal the secret in the challenge. Okay? It's complicated, but that's then how it works. And then we have on the node a secret and on the server secret, and we can use that secret instead of the how was it called? The asset tag.
And
Okay.
how do you exchange that secret in the first place?
You there's a high level function in Go from Google. That's part kind of the TPM whole thingy. That's a complicated kind of standard. The because this quote which you get from the TPM also includes a lot of keys. It's the endorsement key, it's an endorsement key, it's a key, AK public key. That's another key which is then signed again. It's
Oh, it's just using like the standard keys that we know are in there, not a
yeah,
secret
right.
that's
So they are kind of they are importantly are just two keys. It's one key where the vendor signs the endorsement key, and the endorsement key then signs another key, and we can check there's this attestation key. It's called AK. That the attestation key was signed by the endorsement key, which then again signed was by the vendor. And then we can send all the stuff through, and then it's a bit like magic, but now let's see how it looks like. So that's now the www controls TPM command, and then you got the thing is this will give you the status of the node, and we see now here I have booted one node. So it sends us the quote, and we can check that the quote itself is signed by the attestation key of the node. So we check the quote, and we check also in the quote that the attestation key was signed by the endorsement key, and that the endorsement key was signed by the vendor key. And here we see also, I don't know if this is really working because this ID is always unknown. This would be interesting there should be more kind of vendors show up on real hardware. And then because we replay the event log that it matches the PCRs. Okay, that's the event log. We also pass this stage. And that's the implementation we do in Warewulf. We check that it's the PCR 8, I think. That PCR 8, that all the images which were downloaded by Warewulf by the grub are in our event. So perhaps I hope we could verify the node 01. There we see okay, and we should there's a help option as always. So the event log, that's also sometimes kind of useful. Yeah, there we see exactly what's going on. Interesting is here these are these PCRs, and so these are really the boot the BIOS doing stuff. Where it said that secure boot and all that stuff is enabled. I didn't really look into that. Interesting, it becomes here at the PCR8. And PCR8 is really, I'm not checking PCR8 here. I'm checking PCR9. PCR8, their grub kind of really, you see, gives you every step it does. So here comes the echo command, then comes here the Warewulf command, and again an echo. Then it tries to get the asset key and all that kind of stuff. that we could also kind of write a parser for the grub config and parse that one and check if that's all right and if this matches what we expect. But I think it's enough here for the PCR9. Let's go a bit down where PCR9 comes. And that's a really interesting one because here we see, okay, grub received its grub config. Okay, we can, and here it's the digest. That's the first checksum of the grub config, and then it gets its special config. That kind of we know because we delivered that one over TFTP. So when we boot a node, we have to note that separately. But as soon as we are at that stage, we just loop in our HTTP and say, okay, we just record the checksum we have again and again and again, and then we are here at PCR9, and that's all we send. And we hash them together. We check that all we send out shows up in the log, and if this is done, we are good. And then we got our secret key, and then we just use that secret key to exchange our stuff. That's basically it, and now we can go on the node. Interestingly, what's now cat that is the werewolf, and there should be now that's the it's still binary. It shouldn't be binary, by the way, but
We don't see the bottom of your terminal.
Hmm?
We don't see the
you
bottom
don't
of
see the
your
bottom. That's
Truncated to the right and the left.
I don't know why it's truncated. Then that's so. For example, the secret is here. You see it?
Yeah.
You don't see the secret because it's binary. But Joe control unit ww9. Yeah, you see it here that when we upload the TPM and then we are getting the rest. That's it. Yeah. Code-wise, it's really more or less. I will now stop sharing my screen. The thing is, this whole TPM stuff is a bit fragile. I don't know. People really have to test it on real hardware.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it doesn't interfere with the rest of the Warewulf code. So it's kind of if you have to really. I just added one bool variable in the data structure for every node, which just means, or for every profile, which just means you enable TPM because you have to enable it. And this is really a feature of a node. And then, but that's also, and the rest is really completely separate program code. So merging should be possible without interfering with the rest.
Okay. You said it's a
And
Boolean on each node? It's a Boolean on each node to enable it?
it's a Boolean on each node or in the profile.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it also creates one file per node. It's called tpm.json, which then holds all the data, and that's in the rendered overlay directory for every node. It's in Warlib, Werewolf, where we send it out because I have to store it somewhere. I was thinking it to store it inside the nodes.conf, but I think it's node specific for every node. It's really a lot of information if you check it there, and if it's and it would then mess up the rest of the stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
if it's working, it's just. You shouldn't recognize that it's working. It also has then some commands for managing so that if you replace the node, that you can. The one thing would just so it works a bit like the SSH key. So it tries like when you SSH to a node, it stores the key it gets at the first connection, and so this thing also stores the TPM information it gets on the first connection. And it also, if this endorsement key would change, it would say, okay, I can give the secret out. Or if something, because the endorsement key is really, it's the one which is burned into the hardware. which then means somebody else kind of replaced that node and said, oh,
Right.
I'm this node.
Or is standing in the middle, which is what you.
It's completely irrelevant if somebody is standing in the middle as long as he sends to the node the same images.
Sure, I mean in his intercepting and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
acting as it. Yeah.
If he's intercepting and meddling with the stuff, then we could recognize that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I know that it has felt to me at a very high level like integrating support for the TPM is the real solution to the security issue of speaking between the Werewolf server and the nodes. So I'm looking forward to learning more about it. But I'll have to dig
Yeah,
into
that
it to
I
feel like
also
I
added some
understand it.
documentation there. You have, and I was really surprised how good the LLMs are with that because that's so freaking complicated that there is so much documentation about this in the internet.
Hmm. Tim, I see you've got a hand up.
Yeah, so it looks like Grub is an integral part of this whole boot process.
Yeah,
And does Grub talk to the TPM directly?
yeah.
And have you looked at UKI, the Unified Kernel, whatever, where you pack a CPIO in a kernel
It
and
should
sign it?
also update the TPM, but as long as we don't support it on the Werewolf side, I couldn't check it. So yeah, that would be the next thing. It's also with our current even implementation, even on a disk full setup, it should work because this chain of what we send out is the same. I just didn't test it with the two-stage process. If drop does something different here, but we're sending out the same stuff here. It
The
could
only,
be
so go ahead.
it could be that when we are then in the init LD and then it requests the rest of the image, that it doesn't then update the PCR9. Perhaps we would then have to add that there.
I
So
think in
it
I think in general, in order to detect attacks, you're going to have to lock down all the configurations, right? You can't have a grub shell because if it's going to pass the configuration and then you do something on the side,
you can have a grub shell as long as you just don't alter the images.
yeah, okay.
There are some loopholes. So the thing is, you could still get a secret key after you kind of broke into the node, but that's not the target we are kind of.
I'm just thinking like using a shell to get all the you have a Dracut rescue shell and then you can put a payload in there even though you downloaded what you were supposed to do already. So you give it the proper images and then you put in
Yeah,
a
but
payload after.
yeah, that's not the thing is we just measure what's to a specific state, and with the as soon as when you get a Draco shell, we are kind of out.
Yeah,
Then
but you'd
we
have to disable the Dracut shell,
yeah
so whatever given configuration has to be locked down for it in order to assure that you get a proper boot, because you theoretically cannot escape that configuration to sideload whatever additional materials for an
yeah.
attacker
But
vector.
I just said it for the single stage boot. For the two-stage boot, then we have to say, okay, in the Dracut that the scripts we have in our Dracut kind of they then have to retrieve the secret. And at that stage, we say, okay, at that stage, we lock down and say retrieve data secret, and then we have it. Perhaps then that's the point to get it there. Then we have to start. Then we have also to include www client into the Draco shell, but yeah.
More research needed.
Yeah, but as long I think we don't interfere so much with. So the thing is, I'm worried you can review it, we can over because it's kind of really they are also adding this kind of two file paths where we upload the code and get the challenge, but also this is completely separated to the rest of Werewolf. It's just two handlers.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for the overview, Christian.
No
I
problem.
am too out of the loop on TPM to have intelligent questions, but I want to check out the work you've been doing, and
Yeah.
I will be interested in it. That's the end of the agenda I've prepared. Anything else that we need to discuss before we're done for today?
I just have one very quick question. Is there any reason why I haven't tried it yet, but does anyone know any blockers of using Werewolf across multiple um the same instance of a Werewolf server across multiple isolated uh IP subnets?
People have definitely done it.
Okay.
You need to have a DHCP relay in each of your subnets that points back to the Werewolf server, and then you might need to have a custom DHCP configuration
A
that handles each of those
single,
subnets.
so no way to do it with if assuming we were VLANing it, and
Yeah.
that the Werewolf main Werewolf node has access to all of the subnets.
Oh yeah, then you don't need a relay.
Okay.
But you will probably still need a custom DHCP configuration so that it knows how to respond on each of
I
those.
can
Because
certainly
by
update
default,
that.
it only knows to talk about one. But other than
Okay.
that,
I was just curious if people have actually done. We just had a request come in and they want the whole cluster set up that way.
yeah,
So I would
I've
like to
definitely
try
done
it.
that. I've done that myself in the past, and
Okay.
that'll get easier in a future release when we have split host overlays, and you can override the DHCP configuration more naturally rather than having to modify the host overlay directly. But you can do it now. It's just a little hacky. Cool. Our next meeting is in 2 weeks, which is the 15th of April, and then there is a Werewolf user group meeting on the 8th. Anything for people to keep in mind for that, Rose? Do you have a speaker lined up for that by any chance already?
I do. It's actually going to
Wonderful.
be some of the support folks at CIQ talking about the things that they have come across. So
Nice.
little gotchas and yeah,
Okay.
it'll be
Well, we'll
good.
look forward to that,
Yeah,
and we'll keep working on the 4.7 release. And thanks everyone for being here. See you next time.
Yeah.
awesome. Thanks. Have a great day.